Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 4, Episode 3 of Manifest. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, first and foremost, is this the first episode of Muda's popped up in since, the beginning of this series? Maybe he has he's never been a main focus of an episode, I don't think. So it's kind of wild, it's been so long. And it's but I guess it's almost befitting because it's right, maybe they always plan to eventually bring his character back into the fold. Maybe they just had to expedite stuff considering this is going to be the final season. Because initially it was there was kind of a 6-season plan, which I think they probably had to retool a lot of stuff. But it's technically they got it considering the season's 20 episodes. So it's that's kind of a season 4 and 5, technically speaking, from a certain perspective. So they probably had to expedite some stuff. So maybe, but it being the final season, it makes sense for him to kind of be back, considering he was there. Him and Daly are the only ones who saw the forefront of they had the cockpit perspective on things. And because Michaela's having this calling, this dealing with thunder and lightning, I think it's also kind of befitting considering Cal now has the dragon tattoo on his arm, from the lightning strike. So it's just very befitting. And especially because there's a certain, the ULF from, the black box resonates with that tattoo for whatever reason. So, I mean, not tattoo, I say tattoo. It's like a tattoo because I keep saying that because, I made the whole conversation about lightning strikes kind of give you a permanent tattoo or whatever. But the scar, it resonates with the scar. And it is the whole thing of this 6.2 seconds or whatever, every calling that's ever happened and probably ever will happen, it's there, but it's how is that possible? And we actually get into some really heartbreaking stuff because Michaela, it tries to convince Amuda to talk to her, but kind of forces his hand. The reason why he blames himself because he told Bill he felt like he didn't do enough as a co-pilot. It's his responsibility to have reined Bill back in to be yo, we're not going through the storm. And he's I knew we should have gone up and above it, but I didn't listen. I mean, I didn't force my hand in that regard. And I should have to force Bill to stand down, but we went through it. And because of that, he's those 200 people, their lives being what they are now is on me. Because he believes right, we went all that lightning around us. There's no way we survived. So he does believe that they died. He just doesn't know what their circumstances are now. Once again, what are they? Copies, angels, whatever the case may be. He doesn't know what they really are. But when they went through that light, he felt it, this moment of peace and everything. And he never talked to anyone about it because it's right, how do you explain you feeling this beautiful peace when everyone else around you is feeling nothing but pure dread and terror? I mean, how can you do that? And so once again, it's something only him and Daly saw, and Daly became obsessed with it. It wasn't just about proving his innocence. It was also about getting back to that place because there's this peace that's, there's that quiet peace until it was almost going to the eye of a storm. But in this case, it seems like it is whether it's God, whether it's something else, something went to them and it encapsulated them in this peace. And Cal apparently saw it. And we've seen that in the previous episodes that he's seen it. And it's not until he started talking to Amuda that he remembered, that's where he was in that 5-year time, when he was gone. Just for that time he was gone, he was inside that light, and Daly was telling him to stay, but he runs into Fiona, who's no, you need to go back. There's still stuff you have to do. And the thing is, what Daly wanted him to not go because he's right, there's something you should be worried about. But the moment Cal came back, he doesn't remember anything. So that's interesting, though, that Daly is you should stay. Fiona's no, you have to. But what's also interesting is because he grabbed onto Cal to stop him from going, that's why Bill popped up, but he popped right back in. So I guess it was I guess whatever this was telling Bill, right? It's but he was please help me, because I guess he thought he was still back. Because I guess everything that encapsulated that thing, when they went into it, all the callings flooded into them. Like I said, last episode, I theorized, okay, could it be that everything that's going to happen, they immediately had flooded into their minds so that when they popped out, they have the knowledge of the future of what's happening? Is it when they're having these callings, are they all, because they're stored on a black box, because it recorded all of them. Like I said, I think that kind of infers like the knowledge was bestowed upon them. So for that 5 year period, they had like all that knowledge like basically downloaded in them, and maybe it's all in that place. Maybe that place is kind of like a time, like kind of like oh god, like it's got to be something like, it's not a Bermuda Triangle thing, but maybe it's something similar where like basically you went into this thing and it like flash forward you 5 years or whatever, and everything that you're going to experience, that you need experience, that you need to do, it made you see it. So it's somewhere deep, like maybe it absorbed all of that, and while you're out living your lives, it's slowly beaming that stuff to you when it needs to. Like I said previously, maybe it's just already in their minds. It's just now, like when the time comes, it's slowly like rising from their minds. Like it's they're not even just like their memories at this point in time that they're remembering. I don't know. Like it's a lot, and it's still, that's not a good enough like conclusion on my part. It's still not like fully thought through. But like I said, I'm going with the flow, trying to be like, okay, what could this mean? Like this is my interpretation of it, and even then, it's not on solid enough ground. My theory, I feel like it's still shaky, but it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. But understanding Amuta's side of things, like I said, he kind of went through this alone, and obviously Michaela understands, like, right, like her best friend, wasn't it Evelyn was her best friend? Like, yeah, she still has a lot of guilt over that. She's never forgiven herself. And the same thing for Amuta. He's never forgiven himself for everything that went down. But it's kind of like having to find, like, this was an important thing for him because he had been avoiding it for so long, because this guilt had been on his mind for all these years because of that. But I think running into Michaela made him kind of like ease him. And, it's like, and even him being like, yeah, you're kind of, because he's like, without Bill being around, he misses his co-pilot and stuff like that. And Michaela had this look on her eyes, like she understood exactly what he was going through. And I was like, because of Ben. Ben's been like her co-pilot throughout all of this. Like anytime something was going down, she could always talk to Ben about it. They'd be in this together. And so she's the one kind of having to go full steam ahead with all this stuff. And she feels lost without Ben. And so when it's all said and done, she does talk to Ben later on. It's like, I'm not asking you to give up on Eden. I just hope that when you do find her, that I can have my co-pilot back, because she's on shaky ground with this whole thing, because it's always been, she wants her co-pilot back, because they have always been a team for a very long time. Because if I remember correctly, like the callings did start with Michaela, if I remember correctly, in the first episode. So it kind of started with her, but then eventually, but Ben was the one being like, it's whatever. But yeah, eventually they did become a team on this whole situation. So that's fascinating. Another element to the episode is Ben's continued search for Angelina and Eden, and we'll tie in like the Angelina and Eden stuff like later, but just on Ben's side of things, obviously he has Drea and Jarrett helping out, because now they have actual leads to go by, but they have to be careful about it because, like, the only reason why it's like, we're going to have to go to the registry. It's like, well, why do we have to go to the registry? It's like, well, because we are tracking down an 828 murderer. It's like, this is a villain that's an 828er. Like, of course, they're going to go harder to paint about. They're going to dedicate the time, like, oh, we got to find this person. Like, especially if there's now a lead being like, oh, no, she's definitely still alive, because they closed the NYPD had closed the case, because it's like, right, everyone believed her to be dead, but now it's like, oh, she's alive, she's an 828er, and she's a murderer. It's like, yeah, we got to take her down, because she fits the bill of everything people think about the 828ers anyway. Because it actually leads to an interesting conversation with Jared and Drea, where Jared like sees like the 828 treatment in the NYPD department. He's like, yeah, that's got to be pretty rough for you. She's like, yeah, but you understand, you were undercover. He's like, yeah, but I was with a bunch of lunatics. It's different when it's like your fellow officers, when you see like, these are people who your job is to literally protect citizens, and what are you doing? You're profiling and judging them. Obviously, there's a lot of parallels to be made, obviously, to racism, and Drea makes those comparisons to the way like people are being registered and how they're being locked up. She's like, yeah, like it reminds her of, I think she said her grandmother, like, obviously World War II, the encampments for all Japanese people, or even just Japanese Americans, and she wanting to do her part in this situation because she wishes what someone on the inside would have done for her grandmother at the time or something like that. And I thought that was powerful. And obviously, and even Jared Lang, I understood, you know, because it's like, yeah, it's a pretty hard situation, but it's like considering like the good she can do being on the inside and all that she can help, you know, I thought that was pretty dope. What's also interesting too is that Drea got a very specific cup of coffee, and Kayla's like, yo, like, yeah, it's interesting considering like, only way you could probably get that place is like, oh, like it's something around Jarrett's place. And she's like, damn, it's like, oh, so he still doesn't know I know. It's like, yeah, don't let him know that you know. It's like, oh, so she's known for a while. I was like, oh, so, I mean, I guess it's like Drea probably felt like, right. And it's like, right, as your former partner, I should probably tell you I'm with your former partner / former fiance. So like your ex, so I'm sure, but it's like, and they know that, and Jarrett doesn't know that. So that's why I feel like it will eventually become something more, because I'm sure Michaela's probably happy for them. It's like, no, I want you to be happy. It's like, she probably even says, like, probably thinks like you two would be a cute couple and everything. So I thought that was really fascinating. I thought that was kind of a neat little detail. I was like, because the way she was teasing it, I was like, oh, I thought like, oh, is Michaela not know? But then they're laughing about it. I was like, oh, so Michaela's known for a while now. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So either way, they're continuing to look into Angelina, and that ends up eventually tracking them back to the library. I know I say it weird. I say library. It's library. Once again, someone got on me about my pronunciation. I'm sorry. I say things the way I say. I'm sorry. Either way, and we finally found out what the photo is that she left the librarian with, and that was a photo of a flower. And that becomes very significant later on, because Angelina's whole thing is she's trying to prove like, no, there's a strong connection. Like me and Eden have a connection. It's like, yeah, you might have, but it's like probably also like you're reading too much into it, because she's trying to fill some void in herself, because she's trying to make it seem like everything that happened is for a reason. It's kind of like, well, when you're a murderous person like you, like, do you really think you deserve a guardian angel? I even love she tried to tell Adrian like, oh, she's our guardian angel or something, because it's like, right, he's the one that had a calling about her, and he told her to go to her guardian angel. So it's kind of wearing this together, and that ends up playing in the stuff of Adrian's story, which we'll get to. But let's focus on Adriana and everything right now. But she was frustrated because she's trying to prove the connection, because Adrian bringing up that stuff about that, you know, because she's so busy wanting to believe in it that now that Adrian makes her question herself, she's like, no, I know me and Eden are connected. So it's like, right, draw what I'm drawing, focus, show that we're connected. And she was so frustrated. You know, it's like, right, especially later on when she was giggling and in her food she wrote dad, and she's like, you don't have a dad, I told you that before, and smashes like the food. It's like, yeah, I mean, we've already seen that. We've proven the fact that she went dressing up as Olive last season, started making moves on, was it TJ? Like, and I mean, obviously murdering Grace, and how she had like a very unhealthy relationship with Eden, like treating her like a mom, like that. She was already like, Angelina had a lot of issues, and I think, like I said, I think a lot of the religious issues she suffered from her parents, this whole thing kind of gave her something to hold on to. Plus, like, the guy she fell in love with, who died during the trials last season, like that, like all that trauma, like she was already like disturbed and a little off before then, but I think that just like finally sent her over the edge, I think, in the grand scheme of things. So, but yeah, like, cause even Adrian can tell like something's off about all of this, and he won't pull the trigger on it, because he turns to, I mean, why out of anyone would you go to Egan for help, like advice? Cause I guess in his mind it's like, right, all Egan's ever done has been for the greater, like, greater things for the passengers. But it's also like Ben and Michaela have done that too, but he twisted and manipulated. He's like, oh, the callings, they're darker, we're the only ones that recognize the callings for the evil that they are. It's like, yes, says the man who kidnapped children and held them captive. Like, you know, like, you're not a good person, Egan. And him doing what he did at the end of the episode, telling Ben, hey, I know where your daughter is, you know. It's like, for one, he does not like Ben. He doesn't trust Ben. He did everything he did last season, and I'm sure he's going to try and manipulate Ben. It's like, cool, you want information on where your daughter is? Because I know exactly where she is. He's using this as like, he wants to make it seem like, oh, he cares about the passengers and stuff. It's like, no, Egan has always been this self-centered person. Once again, that's why Ben was like, why do people follow him? That guy was a thieving bastard. Like, he's not a good guy. So like the fact is, he's always been a selfish prick. So why do people want to follow him now? All of a sudden, he wants to make it seem like he's altruistic. We brought him into the fold, and he's kind of been all villainous with the whole callings and everything. So I just found that so fascinating. But the fact is, you can tell, like, just by the end of the episode, you're like, he's going to obviously use this to leverage Ben into making it, like, trying to get, like, the police to make a deal with him. It's like, cool, I'll give you this information, just get me out of here. I'm assuming that's going to be the case. He's just been looking for his opportunity for leverage because, once again, he's the Weasley guy he's always been. Once again, nothing against the actor who plays him. The actor who plays him is just only, like, he really dials in on, like, how scummy Egan is, but it's just because that's how the character's written. Once again, nothing against the actor. I always have to point that out, because when I go hard on a character, I'm like, yeah, but it's a character. I don't, because sometimes that bleeds over in the actors for most people. For some, not most people, some people, it bleeds over into the actors. I don't hold that against the actors. I just think that's just you doing a really good job of, bringing to life the words that were written on the page, so. Either way, going back to Ben really quickly, there was this moment with Olive, because, once again, even Olive is still finding her way through this. Like, her and Cal, like I said, are in a better place. We haven't gotten to that point, even in the flashbacks yet, but the little song thing that they were singing during breakfast, it's kind of been their thing, and he was trying to, Cal even said, like, before Eden disappeared, I keep saying Edith, Eden disappeared, he was trying to teach it to her, and that ends up playing a role in whenever Eden's making her messages and sending it to her dad, he's drawing them to keep them traced on the wall so they don't forget. And when Olive goes out there, she wants to help her dad, especially because she tried to reach out to her dad before, but he didn't want to listen because he was ignoring everything calling wise, even though, like, he was so adamant about the callings, but he walked away from them because he felt like, oh, they've done nothing but steer me in the wrong direction, especially even in this case, because he's like, my calling took me in the general area for my daughter, but it should have taken me to her directly, And it's like, well, because there's other elements to it. It's not just so black and white. It's like, right, you also had to rescue that guy while also putting you in position because you were so, I think the point is also to I think it's a giant message of, he saved that guy while he was so blindedly looking for Eden that it's like, right, your obsession with trying to find Eden, we will help you, but there is a greater part to play. Like, Eden's involved in this because she is having a calling, so she is, like, the lifeboat situation is going to involve her as well. So at the end of it all, what you need to, like, not be so blinded by his need to find Eden, because it blinds him to everything else that's coming at them and is going to blind him to what's going to ultimately end up blindsiding him. I think that might be what the callings are trying to teach him, at least with that whole thing in episode 1, like, it's because it led him to Anna and everything, so we'll have to wait and see whether that ends up being a case or not. But yeah, like I said, Olive tried to reach out to him by being like, hey, here's some stuff in the book, but he didn't want to listen because anything mystical, no, here's some grounded information about her, this is what I'm gonna do, and he got so frustrated. So it wasn't Cal wasn't the only one he was pushing away, he pushed away Olive. Like, everyone is walking on eggshells around him, and even Michaela said that in the first episode. So Olive ended up helping even more so in this case, but there was no leads at the library because, like, she had made sure to wipe the history of where she was going and everything. So, but Olive is still helping in that regard. I think their dad is kind of like let his guard down a little bit more and kind of extends his help, and it gets help from Olive because she was the one to kind of help figure things out, because she's even the one, like, because I thought it was so beautiful too, because she had talked to Cal early in the episode, because for her, she felt bad because she's like, I told Dad to give up on Eden, and he's like, yeah, but Cal was like, we all did, but she's like, no, but when you were gone, I always felt that you were alive. That was a whole point of complications between her and Grace, because she could feel it, but Grace couldn't. But now it's a situation of, like, she's always been able to feel Cal, always knew he was alive. The problem is she doesn't feel that with Eden. But in that moment, she was like, wait, Eden is drawing, like, the song that me and Cal were singing. It's like I can feel her. She felt that connection. She was so scared that she didn't have that with her baby sister, but in actuality, she did. I thought that was beautiful. And we see at the end that I believe it was her and Cal were looking into some of the books, and I forgot what it was. Something related to all this. Oh, no. It's Zombie that was actually looking into it. Zombie found out that the ultra low frequencies, and there's different animals that can, I guess, hear it or whatever, because it has its, I guess, like, it's a frequency that humans can't hear, but animals can. One of the animals that can hear it is a peacock. Peacocks have been significant since, like, season 1. So it's interesting to kind of bring that full circle. So there's obviously deeper roots and connections in all of this. But another element to it is that Adrian believes, like, well, because of what Egan said, it's like, cool, you report Angelina, they're not going to just stop with her. They're going to bust everyone else at the kind of your safe house. So it's like, you'll be doing more harm than good for the 828ers. But if you let Angelina go, then, that child is going to be in danger. And when he went up to the room and, like, got them stuff, got her, like, a toy and everything, he looked at the wall and saw, like, it broke it. Like, so he knows, like, right, Angelina is unhinged, so I can't let her go. I do have to let her stay here because this is how I protect all the 828ers, because he wanted to let Ben know what's what. But once again, Egan was just, waiting for his opportunity. Like, oh, no, you don't take advantage of it. Let me take advantage of it. What he said can still be true. It just doesn't take away from the fact is that he's also using this situation to benefit himself. And I can't also forget, obviously, there is the whole Ash calling, I believe, God, who else got it? I know Ben got it. I want to say Cal might have gotten it as well. No, Egan got it, I believe. The Ash calling. So, but Ben's calling, he saw a giant volcano and the ash was all around, and he saw somebody, but he couldn't make out who it was. And I'm curious if it's supposed to be Cal or something. We'll have to wait and see, but a lot of very, very interesting developments. We'll ultimately have to wait and see where it all takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good